You know that feeling when big events happen, especially in places with a complex history, and you really want to grasp what's actually going on
Yeah.
without getting totally swamped by details.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's what we're aiming for today. We're taking a close look, a deep dive into the military strengths of India and Pakistan right now.
Hmm.
This is obviously, very relevant after those recent reports. Missile strikes, drone activity,
Yeah.
following that awful attack in Kashmir. It's definitely raised a lot of questions.
It really has, and we've got this detailed ABC News report as our foundation here. Our mission really is to go beyond just the headlines, beyond the simple numbers.
Right.
We want to try and understand the actual military balance between these two neighbors, both nuclear armed, which is always a key factor.
So important.
It means looking at the specifics, what gear they have, and sort of what their strategic thinking might be behind it all.
Okay, let's dive in then. So straight away, the report confirms something most probably suspect. India has the larger overall military footprint compared to Pakistan.
That's right, yeah. India fields the world's second largest military by personnel. Only China has more active troops.
Wow.
But, and this is crucial, what the report really emphasizes is that despite that size difference, their capabilities are actually thought to be quite closely matched.
Ah, okay, so it's not just about counting heads.
Exactly. It's about the tech, the training, the doctrine. And it seems both have been pretty busy upgrading since that last major flare-up in 2019.
Right, I remember that. So what kind of upgrades are we talking about?
Well, the report mentions more sophisticated aircraft, new missile systems, and a lot more drones coming online for both countries.
Drones seem to be everywhere now.
They really are. It's this constant cycle of improvement and acquisition that, shapes the balance we see today. It's always shifting.
Okay, now we can't really discuss this region without talking about the nuclear elephant in the room. Both have nuclear weapons. The numbers we're seeing from the International Institute for Strategic Studies are about 172 warheads for India, 170 for Pakistan. That's remarkably close. And kind of chilling, frankly.
It is a sobering reality, no doubt. But the experts cited in the report, they tend to believe actual use is unlikely.
Okay, that's...
Somewhat reassuring.
The thinking is the potential for absolute devastation is just too high for either side to contemplate seriously. Mutually assured destruction, essentially.
But even if they don't go nuclear, the report stresses that any conventional fighting, even limited stuff, carries a massive risk of things spinning out of control fast.
Precisely. It's incredibly dangerous, even at a lower level. Those nuclear arsenals just cast this huge shadow over everything, making every military move extremely calculated, extremely risky.
Right. Okay, let's get more specific on those conventional forces. Pakistan's estimated to have, what, around 700,000 personnel?
Roughly, yes. Around that mark.
And India, as we said, is massive. Plus, their military spending in 2024, huge. Fifth largest in the world, 86.1 billion US dollars. That sounds like a big resource gap. It definitely suggests India has, deeper pockets for a longer, drawn-out conflict, more staying power, perhaps. However, looking at current capabilities, right now, the report keeps coming back to this idea that the actual military strength they can each deploy is relatively balanced. Pakistan's military might be smaller, but it's getting more modern, and it's seen as a very capable force today.
Okay, that's the key distinction. Now, this part I found really interesting. Where are these weapons coming from? Pakistan apparently gets a staggering 81% of its arms from China. That's according to SIPRI, the Stockholm Institute.
Yeah, 81%. It's a huge figure. And it really points to that very strong strategic alignment between Islamabad and Beijing.
No kidding. And India.
India, on the other hand, has been building up its forces partly through, increased support and purchases from Western countries.
So different suppliers, different relationships?
Exactly. And that can impact the kind of technology they get access to, interoperability, diplomatic ties, all sorts of things.
And yet, despite India's size advantage, the ICES, the International Institute for Strategic Studies, they keep saying there's this balance in what the two militaries can actually do.
It really hammers home the point that, just counting soldiers or even tanks isn't the whole story. Quality of equipment, training standards, strategic planning, those factors are just as important, maybe even more so, in figuring out the real balance.
Yeah. Okay, let's shift to the skies then. Air power. India's got the larger Air Force, right? Around 730 combat-capable aircraft.
That's the number cited, yes. And they've also brought in those very advanced French Rafale jets, top-tier Western tech.
Those are serious planes.
Absolutely. And they've got more on order for their Navy, too. They're considered extremely capable.
But the report raises a point. a dilemma for India.
Yeah, it's about strategic focus. India has to consider not just the border with Pakistan, but also potential threats from China up north.
Ah, the two-front issue.
Exactly. So how many of their best assets, like the Rafales, can they realistically commit to the Pakistan front when they have to keep an eye on China? It's a difficult balancing act for them.
Makes total sense. Pakistan's Air Force is smaller, about 450 planes.
Around that, yes. But they've been upgrading too. Since 2022, they've gotten at least 20 of those Chinese J-10C jets, said to be among their most advanced platforms.
So they're definitely trying to keep pace.
They are. And interestingly, there were these claims from Pakistan alleging their J-10Cs shot down Indian aircraft, including, potentially, a Rafale and also some drones.
Whoa. Did India confirm that?
No, India flatly denied it, called it disinformation. Although the report does mention one anonymous U.S. official telling Reuters that at least one downed Indian jet was a Rafale, so it's a bit murky.
Sounds like a bit of information warfare alongside the military stuff.
Could well be. The report also touches on the missiles these planes carry. India's Rafales have the Meteor air-to-air missile range isn't public knowledge officially. Pakistan's J-10s have the Chinese PL-15. Its estimated range is about 200 kilometers, comparable perhaps, but it's never actually been used in combat.
So it's untested.
Right. Which leads the report to frame this as a potential, quote, contest between Western and Chinese technology playing out in the skies over South Asia.
That's a really fascinating angle, like a real-world test case.
In a way, yeah. You could be seeing some of the most advanced systems from different global power blocks potentially going head-to-head in this specific regional context.
Okay, what about defending against air attacks? Air defenses.
Right. After some gaps were apparently exposed back in 2019, India moved to get Russia's S-400 system.
Ah, yes, the S-400. It's supposed to be very good, isn't it?
Highly regarded, yeah. A mobile, long-range anti-aircraft missile system, a significant upgrade for their defenses.
And Pakistan.
They've also boosted their defenses, acquiring the HQ-9 system from China. It's based on Russia's older S-300 system.
So both sides investing heavily there, too, trying to deny the airspace to the other.
Exactly, and the report even mentions the possibility of India integrating its S-400 with its Navy, which adds another layer of complexity.
Okay, let's move to the ground. The report mentions the line of control in Kashmir. Clashes there are pretty common, unfortunately.
Yes, sadly, skirmishes are frequent. But the recent fighting sounds like it's been, well, kicked up a notch.
How so?
Well, they quote Sushant Singh, who's at Yale now, former Indian Army officer. He described it as very high intensity, using bigger weaponry, more powerful weaponry on both sides.
That sounds worrying. An escalation in the type of force being used?
It suggests that, yes. And another big focus seems to be on missiles and drones again.
Right, back to the drones.
Both are investing heavily. India's got Israeli Heron Mk2s, long endurance, good for strategic recon, and they've got U.S. Predators on order. There's also talk of them using swarm drones.
Swarm drones, multiple drones working together.
That's the idea, a newer tactic. Pakistan, meanwhile, has Turkey's Bayraktar TB2, the Akinci, plus Chinese wing loom drones, also long-endurance types.
Quite the collection on both sides.
Yeah, it is. And the report includes Pakistan's claims of shooting down, I think it was 12 Indian drones, and even accusing India of sending Israeli suicide drones, Haraps, towards major cities like Karachi and Lahore.
Wow, those are some serious accusations. Really highlights the tension.
It certainly does. And it's not just drones. Both countries have ballistic missiles capable of hitting anywhere in the other's territory.
That's the really scary part.
And these missiles are reportedly targeted at sensitive sites, nuclear facilities, command centers, which is, deeply concerning. Pakistan also recently tested a surface-to-surface ballistic missile about 450 kilometers range, clearly a signal of readiness.
The show of force.
Absolutely. A constant demonstration of capability and resolve. But despite all this hardware intention, the analysts interviewed for the report, they mostly seem to think a full-blown war, or definitely nuclear use, is still pretty unlikely.
Oh, why is that? Given everything we've just discussed.
Well, it comes back to that relative balance of power. One analyst, Marcus Hellier, is quoted saying the lack of a huge imbalance actually limits the options for both sides. There's no easy military victory in sight for either.
So the cost is just too high, the outcome too uncertain.
Pretty much. And the report emphasizes that force is really not a way to resolve the underlying issue of Jammu and Kashmir.
Right.
Plus, think about it, they both went nuclear back in '98. But the conflicts since then, like Kargil in '99 or the 2019 skirmish, they stayed limited. It suggests there are these sort of unstated red lines.
Boundaries they generally don't cross, even when things get heated.
Seems that way. India also has that stated no first-use policy for nuclear weapons, which is a factor. And they did agree years ago not to attack each other's nuclear sites, a critical safeguard.
Still, this recent escalation is pretty alarming. Pakistan vowing a response to India's reported strikes, the back-and-forth claims about missiles and drones, a ceasefire breaking down almost immediately. It feels very fragile.
It does feel fragile, and the reminder about 2019, how close that came to really escalating before the U.S. apparently stepped in to de-escalate, it shows how quickly things could spiral.
Yeah.
And Mohammed Faisal from University of Technology Sydney made a really vital point in the report. Any major conflict today would almost certainly involve all these newer, more advanced weapons we've talked about.
The Rafales, the J-10s, the S-400s, the advanced drones.
Exactly, making the outcome even harder to predict. As he put it quite bluntly, it is only when we see actual combat that we will find out how effective these things really are against each other. And that uncertainty, that's a major source of instability in itself.
Okay, so pulling this all together, the big takeaway seems to be this. India has the larger military machine, more people, more resources, definitely. But Pakistan, with its focus on modernization and that heavy reliance on Chinese tech, has managed to create a situation where their actual capabilities are seen as pretty closely matched right now.
That seems to be the core assessment, yes.
And this creates a really dangerous dynamic, doesn't it? In a region that already has such a fraught history, this close balance, especially in things like air power and missiles, it almost creates a kind of conventional deterrence.
Yeah.
Or maybe conventional mutually assured destruction, making even limited strikes a super high-stakes gamble.
That sums it up well. A dangerous equilibrium, perhaps. And yeah, while nuclear war is seen as unlikely, the report is crystal clear. Even smaller conventional clashes have a really high risk of escalating into something much bigger, much more destructive for everyone involved.
So this deep dive really leaves us, and you listening, with a pretty significant question to chew on, I think. With military tech evolving so fast on both sides and these underlying tensions that just simmer away, what does military balance even mean in the 21st century, especially in this specific, very volatile context?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
And maybe more importantly, how does this particular kind of delicate, tech-driven balance affect the prospects for de-escalation, for finding peaceful solutions, and for long-term stability in South Asia? Definitely something to keep thinking about.